What's up, viewers? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be covering the second half of the brand new first level spells from Secrets of Magic. Let's just dive right into it. Last time we left off with Mud Pit, so now it's time to talk about Necromancer's Generosity. This spell is a really good way of healing undead minions. Spellcasters with the Arcane list now have a way of healing their undead minions. Also, in some situations, this spell may be better than using the Harm spell to heal your undead minions, if you have the Divine list. This spell heals one undead minion that you control within 30 feet by 1d8 plus 4 hit points. Not only that, but it also buffs their saves against positive effects. Heightening this spell by 1 spell level increases the healing by 1d8 plus 4. Sadly, this spell only affects one creature. So if you want to hit multiple creatures with negative energy, you're still going to have to use the Harm spell. But if you only have one undead to heal, then this is much more worth it than using the Harm spell. But if you're playing a Necromancer, I would save your Harm spells for hitting multiple targets or using Channel Smites. Overall, pretty situational spell, really depends on what's going on. And really, there's no point in taking this spell unless you're a Necromancer. Now let's talk about a good spell for gamblers. Nudge the Odds is available to Arcane, Divine, and Occult spellcasters. For 1 hour after casting this spell, you gain a +1 bonus to Games Lore checks to gamble, and if you roll a critical failure on such checks, you only get a failure instead. The first level version of this spell is too short-lived for you to use it to earn income by gambling. While under the effects of this spell, one facial feature that is determined by the GM transforms into a distinctive golden color. This feature cannot be hidden by magical means. However, it can be hidden by mundane means. Any creature that notices the feature can attempt a recall knowledge to identify the spell. This spell prevents losing big, so many gamblers consider it cheating. Of course, if you happen to get caught using this spell, then you ought to suffer some big consequences, depending on the nature of the gamblers you cheated. Heightening this spell to 5th level increases the bonus to +2 and the duration to until your next daily preparations. As long as you continue to use your spell slot to keep this spell active, you can use the 2nd level version of this spell to earn income by gambling. The 5th level version of this spell is actually pretty good to earn income as long as you don't get caught using it. Since you can't use the 1st level version of this spell to earn income, it's not as good. But this spell could definitely lead to some interesting sessions, to say the least. Pocket Library is a spell that I hope gets people to use Recall Knowledge a lot more than they have been. It takes 3 actions to cast, but you would cast this spell at the beginning of the day because it lasts for 24 hours. When you cast this spell, choose one skill that you're trained in that you can also recall knowledge with. For the duration of the spell, when attempting a recall knowledge check, you may pull out a tome from this extra dimensional library. This is part of the recall knowledge action. You must have a free hand to do this. The tome appears in your hand, open to the correct page. This grants a +1 status bonus on that recall knowledge check. If you roll a critical failure on this check, you get a failure instead. If you roll a success and the target is a creature, then you gain additional context as if you had rolled a critical success. The 1st level version of this spell ends when you reference one book from the library. However, heightening this spell to 3rd level increases the bonus to +2, and you can reference a book from the library twice before the spell ends. Heightening this spell to 6th level increases the bonus to +3, and you can reference the library 3 times before the spell ends. Heightening the spell to 9th level increases the bonus to +4, and you can reference the library 4 times before the spell ends. Recall Knowledge is one of those actions that doesn't seem like it'll help, but it actually will. Especially if you can communicate to your allies enemy weaknesses. If you're an intelligence-based arcane or occult caster, this is definitely one you should pick up. Now it's finally time to talk about my favorite 1st level spell from Secrets of Magic, Protector Tree. Only primal casters get this spell. You create a tree in any unoccupied space that is within 30 feet. This tree lasts for 1 minute. The tree has AC 10 and 10 hit points. Whenever an ally that is adjacent to the tree would take damage, the tree takes the damage first. Any damage beyond what it takes to knock the tree to 0 hit points is dealt to the original target. If the tree is in soil and survives to the spell's conclusion, then it becomes a non-magical tree. If not, it disappears. Heightening this spell by 1 level increases the tree's hit points by 10. This spell is an excellent way to protect ranged fighters like spellcasters. Even if you've got a champion in the party, they can't protect the spellcasters all the time, so this spell is still good even in that case. It would be pretty difficult to take down a party that had a primal caster with this spell active and a champion. I am really glad to see that druids are getting more teamwork-based spells. Alright, it's time to talk about Quick Sort. This is another out-of-combat spell. It's available to all casters. With this spell, you can target up to 200 light bulk objects within 10 feet. You magically sort the items. You can sort these items in 2 different ways. You can sort them by an easily observable factor, such as color or shape, or you can sort them by an easily understood notion, such as page number, title, or date. The objects sort themselves during the duration, but you don't have to spend the whole minute on it. In fact, it only takes 1 round to sort 30 items or less. Heightening this spell to 3rd level doubles the number of items you can sort with this spell. Heightening it to 5th level doubles it again. This spell is really good if you have a ton of objects to go through. Like maybe you're in a huge library and you found the section you need, but you don't want to go through every book. That's a pretty good use for this spell. Really, whether or not you take this spell will depend entirely on what type of campaign you are in. The Restyle spell is essentially just the Glamored Rune for armor, but permanent. It is available to all casters and takes 1 minute to cast. The main difference between the two is that the Glamored Rune is an illusion, while this spell actually physically changes how the clothing looks. You can only make minor aesthetic changes to the clothing with this spell. You can't change the clothing's overall shape, size, or purpose. You cannot change the overall craftsmanship or artistry of the item with this spell. The clothing statistics do not change. The only use I can see for this spell is if you find some kind of armor you want to use, but you want to change how it looks. But you could already do that with the Glamored Rune, it just wouldn't be permanent. Overall, just not that useful of a spell. Definitely not worth a 1st level slot. Sheldonrood, I really hope I'm pronouncing that right, is a good spell. It is available to Arcane, Divine, and Occult casters and takes a reaction to cast. The trigger for this reaction is you critically fail a saving throw against a foe's effects, and the foe is within 30 feet. The target must make a will saving throw. If they critically succeed, they are unaffected. Nothing happens. If they succeed on their will save, then they take a -1 status penalty on perception checks and will saves for 1 round. If they fail on their save, they are stupefied 1 for 1 round. And finally, if they critically fail their save, they're stupefied 2 for 1 round and stunned 1. This is an excellent debuff spell to use against spellcasters, especially if you've got 2 spellcasters in the party that use spells that require will saves. One spellcaster casts this spell and the other takes advantage of it. If they at least fail, they're gonna have a hard time casting spells on their next turn. And if they crit fail, they're losing an action. Which means if they're sustaining a spell, that means they have to choose whether to sustain it or cast another spell. One of the two, they don't get both. Great debuff spell. Fantastic. Seashell of Stolen Sound basically turns an unbroken seashell into a tape recorder. This is another spell that takes a reaction to cast. The trigger for this one is that a creature within 30 feet begins to make a sound. The spell lasts until your next daily preparations. You or any other creature can interact with the seashell to play back the sound. However, once you play back the sound, the seashell breaks and the spell ends. Just like a normal tape recorder in real life, this spell also records any background noise around the target. This spell does not reproduce any special auditory or sonic effects of the sound. Again, this is another out of combat spell. Good spell for any time you want to record somebody talking and then play it back. Next we have a spell that is only available to divine casters. Summon Lesser Servitor. This works pretty much like any other summon spell. With this spell, you can summon any celestial, monitor, or fiend whose level is -1. Alternatively, you can also summon an eagle, a raven, or a guard dog. This spell cannot be used to summon any creature whose alignment is opposed to your deity on either axis. Heightening this spell to 2nd level allows you to summon a level 1 fiend, celestial, or monitor. Heightening this spell to 3rd level allows you to summon level 2 creatures. Heightening this spell to 3rd level also allows you to summon a black bear, a giant bat, or a leopard. Casting this spell at 4th level allows you to summon level 3 creatures. At 4th level, you can also summon a great white shark or a tiger with this spell. Actually, this is the first spell I've seen that allows you to summon 2 different types of creatures. Please note that in Pathfinder Society, you cannot summon imps with this spell. No idea why, but that's the way it is. It is pretty cool that divine casters have a summon spell all to themselves now, though, so there's that. Synchronize is another out-of-combat spell. Think of this spell as essentially synchronizing your watches. All casters can cast this spell, and you can target up to 5 creatures. The spell can last for up to 24 hours. You place your own unique sigil on the targets. When you cast the spell, you determine at which point your sigil dimly flashes 3 times. At this point, the spell ends. Heightening this spell to 2nd level allows you to target up to 20 creatures. This spell is only good for when you have a time limit to achieve a certain objective. And you gotta split up to do it. Like, maybe there's a puzzle or something that you have to figure out that requires you to split up. Overall, not that useful of a spell. Alright, the last 1st level spell that we got in Secrets of Magic is Thicket of Knives. This is an excellent spell to cast on a rogue. The problem with this spell is that you can't cast it on anybody else. It has to be you. Casting this spell gives you a +2 bonus on deception checks. Also, if you're untrained in deception, you can use the feint action anyway, and you gain your level as a proficiency bonus. This spell would be a lot better in combat if you could cast it on somebody else. Unfortunately, feinting only makes them flat-footed against you. If you are an Eldritch Trickster Rogue that has the Arcane or Occult list, then this spell is really good, because you can combine it with Debilitating Strike, which is very good for teamwork. That's the situation where it would be the best. You really have to combine this spell with other abilities that are good for teamwork for the spell to be good. And that's going to wrap up this video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out my Facebook and my Twitter. But if you really want to support me, you can check out my Patreon page. Links are in the description. I will be continuing my Secrets of Magic coverage in the coming weeks, so look out for those videos. And until next time, remember, teamwork is vital.